Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about The Sum of All Fears. And this movie came out in 2002, and it stars Ben Affleck, Morgan Freeman. And I thought this movie was kind of bad. I didn't really care for it. And for those who don't know, it's a Jack Ryan movie. And out of all the ones I've seen, I think there's one with Chris Pine. That one I haven't seen, but everything else I have seen. I've seen The Hunt for Red October, and this one I liked. It's the only Jack Ryan movie that I enjoyed, whereas Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger, those two I can live without. They're just not that interesting to me personally, and I just didn't really get anything out of this movie. And the only things that I kind of liked were the cast and a couple minute comedic beats, which there were like 2-3 moments where I laughed. And that's about it. The rest of the movie was just boring and didn't need to happen. I didn't care about anything that was going on. And this movie just had a lot of problems in it. And first off, Ben Affleck, I like him in the movie, but all I kept thinking while watching the movie was that compared to Harrison Ford, he kind of feels like he's playing a completely different character or just doing his own thing entirely. And that was kind of distracting for a bit, but eventually I did get used to it. And I don't think it's trying to tie itself into the previous movies. I'm not too sure, even though the books are connected. I'm not sure how intertwined all these movies are with each other. But anyways, the first thing that I really did not like about the movie was that there was an explosion within the first 5 minutes of the movie, and there were just too many cuts when it happened, and we just had every shot of that same explosion going off, and I'm like, do we really need to see that? And that was the first indication that this movie is probably not going to be that great, and I was right. The overall film just was not that great. I didn't care for the look of the movie. I just found it to be kind of distracting with it being kind of dark and just something that felt very different and distracting, and I just couldn't get into it. This movie never grabbed me emotionally. I never once cared about anything that was going on with the characters or the story, and once we get into the second half of the movie, that's when things start going along, and you get a great understanding of what's at stake here. Is the U.S. going to bomb Russia? Is Russia going to bomb the U.S.? And we have all that playing into the film, and we're trying to figure out who did what and what's going on in the film. And that's fine and all on paper, but in execution, it just didn't really work for me. Mostly because when characters were talking about nuking each other, especially the U.S. Talking about bombing Russia in this film, it didn't feel like that's something that characters would just naturally do because they just been bombed and the president was under attack and near this nuclear explosion and caused him an injury on his head. But also, once characters started talking about we have to bomb Russia, it felt almost kind of about being a man, toxic masculinity is what it was exploring. I was like, really? That's what we're doing here? And not to give off the implication that that is inherently wrong and bad to explore in a movie like this, but the way that they handle it, I just found it to be cartoonishly unbelievable, and it just took me out of the experience because most of the movie is pretty grounded and trying to be realistic, even if there are some moments of cheese in there, but it's trying to be a very serious movie, and then you have obnoxious things like this in the movie, and it just feels out of place. I never once cared for any of the music. It just added nothing to my experience, and there were too many close shots in this movie. I was starved for a wide shot after a certain point. I was like, let me see the location. Let me see what room we're in, at the very least. And you can almost make out what's there, but that's about it. Most of the movie is just this unintentional claustrophobia feeling throughout 95% of it, minimally. There were a couple moments of CGI in this movie, and those look really dated now. It did not hold up even in the slightest. You can so clearly tell when you're using CG, which thankfully is minimal, but when you notice it, it really stands out like a sore thumb now. And there was a romance in this movie that just felt forced, and I was like, that didn't really need to be in the movie. And that's about all I have to say about The Sum of All Fears. It was bad, it was boring, there were some good performances in it. Not the worst thing ever. The only reason I'm not going to rate this movie like a 1 out of 10 is because I've seen much worse than this, for sure. More incompetent films, so it's not the most incompetent thing ever, and I guess part of what helped out my experience was that I was able to watch it on Netflix at 1.5 times speed. So that probably helped, but aside from that, there's basically nothing in this movie to keep me engaged, so skip this movie if you ever come across it. It's not worth your time, in my opinion. I'll never watch it again. And I'll probably rewatch The Hunt for Red October at some point to see how that holds up. But anyways, The Sum of All Fears, I thought it was bad. So with all that being said, I'm going to give The Sum of All Fears a 3 out of 10. And like I said already, only a reason why it's not lower is because there are so many other movies I've seen that are worse than this that would be either a 1 or a 2. Except I didn't say what my rating for this movie was going to be, so I can't exactly say 1 or 2. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below your thought of The Sum of All Fears, and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for The Pink Panther from 1963, the original. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.